at about 40 degrees Fahrenheit, 8,378 miles on the odometer. It is a Tuesday, January 7th, 2024. I did add chapter 48 to the novel, a novel Rib, Dash, Dog Night Out, Dash, Shepherds of Alaska. What I did in this particular instance and process is I turned on a section of Pulp Fiction. It's a Quentin Tarantino movie, and went to bring out the GIMP scene. Now, it says bring out the GIMP scene on the actual DVD catalog. So if you go to the catalog, I don't know which situation it is, but it's very close to the Bonnie situation. Because after it sums up, it goes into the final part of Pulp Fiction, the Bonnie situation, which was a whole different, side of the movie. It's almost several movies put together. Each movie has its own little theme, but it's also told out of order. And I think the reason why the New School University was teaching non-linear editing was a theory about, they were quoting probably something about Pulp Fiction. Now, whether it was written in screenplay form out of sequence, only Quentin Tarantino would know. Whether it matters, it doesn't, because it was edited in that sequence. So there's a good chance it was actually written that way. But hang on, let's look at the butterfly. Now, what it does is it skips around. So it doesn't, there's other movies that have done this. It doesn't go in linear fashion in movie telling or filmmaking, storytelling. So the story skips around. You see some of the beginning, you see some of the end, you see some of the middle, you see some of the beginning again, you see some of the end. So it jumps back and forth, just like a jester would when he would be juggling. So the scene is the tell-in chase scene, cat and mouse, basically, between Marsalis and the Bruce Willis character, the boxer. I have to go back and touch up on my characters. But they end up at a pawn shop. And the guy who's like, I thought, okay, I'm trying to get this all straight, but I thought originally it was a pawn shop owner and a security guard. But from what I'm looking at, it looks like a pawn shop owner and someone that works for the sheriff's office. I don't know for sure, like he's a jeweler or something like that. But they end up in a basement. Bruce Willis, the boxer character, is being chased by Marsalis Wallace because of a bad bet deal that went down. He was supposed to take the fall, and he didn't take the fall, and then he had a run. So it goes back and forth, and you go back to Vincent Vega killing, Vincent Vega actually gets killed. Sorry, Vincent Vega gets killed by the boxer. And then it eventually ends up at the pawn shop in the basement. So I took that and freeze framed it and went ahead and duplicated the basement as a structure of Kopech's basement, because he's that much of a fan. And so he's a big time fan. And so he takes the dishwasher there and watches Pulp Fiction with him. And then he throws this object at him and stuff like that. And then it just cuts. I leave it to the audience imagination, just like we never find out in Pulp Fiction what is in the briefcase. It looks like it could be gold, but you never really know. The light that shines upward looks gold. So it's interesting. All right, 1.5 will arrive at 8:16 on the arrival time. It will take 7 minutes. All right, yesterday we did 16.9. The word of insult from the well off is to have a good night. They won't say have a good one. Always say have a good one. Or have a good evening's fine. But they'll always use the word night. Have a good night. There's a reason for that. I haven't figured it out yet though. So if you know, leave a comment. They'll say, have a good night. That's the word of insult. But to have a good evening is fine. Or have a good day. Yeah, have a good day is fine. Or have a good one. But to have a good night means something different. Have a good night. Have a good night. Try saying it. Just try saying it right now. What does it mean to you? Have a good night. That means something. It's different than have a good evening. Have a good evening. Or say have a good day. Have a good day. Which that wouldn't make sense because it's nighttime. Or if you said this, have a good one. Or a good one. Have a good one. That's different. It's less impersonal. But to say to have a good night implies something. Have a good night. You ever heard of someone just, they'll say, like, oh dear, they'll say, good night. Ever heard someone say that? Good night. Look at how they're wrapping all their stuff so it doesn't freeze. While people stand behind 7-Elevens. Have a good night. You have a good night. All right, next 1.2. That'll take 1 minute. We will arrive at 9:03 p.m. All right, next one is 2.0 miles. We'll arrive at 9:20. The time on the arrival will take 7 minutes. All right, this January, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and the Color Purple in March at Casa Mañana. Awesome theater. And they're all the way from Alabama. Right. Another night of delivery. We're gonna head back to see Linda and Kitty. Meow. So if you notice about my post today, it's a very important post. It's around 6 o'clock or so, posted chapter 48, which within it duplicated, which that's an important thing, because when it duplicated at just the right moment where the teacher, who is Doc Shelby, Mr. Brown is his name, he's talking about what he's going to talk about in Greek drama, and then all of a sudden he mentions Rib, Dog Night Out, Shepherds of Alaska, and it just comes out right then. I think that's a really good post. It's actually posted on number like 6 o'clock. It's like the first post, and then I went back and reposted it and put it all in one order. But I like that, so I may go back in there and have him talk to the class about Rib rather than Doc Shelby talk about Medea and Euripides and Aeschylus and Sophocles and all that stuff. It'd probably be better. Because eventually, after everything that happens, and they finally form a tight platoon, they go off and they find the corrupt cop, who's actually, he's no longer a cop, but he's a lieutenant, a bad lieutenant. He's just posing as a bad lieutenant because he's also a hacker. So his badge and all that stuff was issued to him to Fort Worth Police Department as a lieutenant, but it was done because of his hacking. I was originally NYPD, so he's a Yankee cop, but came down here and tried to get his way. So he gets stopped and dropped off in Alaska in his underwear. The FBI is aware of Rib. So Rib continues on, becomes a very, very important militia in the United States of America. Revolutionary Independent Branch. Think of the CIA. They would basically execute members of the CIA if they were dirty. They find out who's good and who's bad. Doesn't matter their rank. They represent the people. The one thing about Rib is very, very important. You cannot be a part of the Revolutionary Independent Branch if you have military ties. Now, can your parents be in the military or something like that? Yeah, that's okay. But you can't be in the military if you want to belong in the Rib. It'd be a conflict of interest. You would not be allowed in. So that's what they would pretty much find out. That's why all of them are losers starting off, like Droopy and Poopy and Jed Wilson. Jed Wilson was a failed musician from Seattle. Droopy lived in a trash can behind 7-Eleven in Fairbanks, Alaska. Probably an ex-drug addict. And Poopy had a horrible problem with incontinent, like diarrhea. Became one of the best snipers they have. Only poops himself every once in a while. The military would never let him. But Rib didn't have a problem with him. So, they don't have badges, but they do have a sign. It's RIB. I think that's R. I'm going to say it's R, but I and B. So that would probably be one of the signs. That would be one of the signs, depending on what branch. The other sign will be that. Now, just like the English saw the Revolutionary Army as a bunch of gangsters. It's probably how the military would look at Rib until I get a attack bullet right through their forehead. They're dangerous. So they're based out of Alaska, and they started off by a guy named Dwarf. His name was Dr. Shelby, also Mr. Brown. He was a high school teacher. He introduced Rib to the drama class. Probably a talk about him, kind of with a weird moment. Probably a weird moment in the movie or the book, whatever it ends up in, novella or vlog. It still counts as a vlog. Him talking about Greek theater, and all of a sudden just starting to talk about Rib. I remember reading about this in a psychology class. There was a teacher, it was like a professor or something, and he would teach him. He said, "I am the president of the United States," and he threw an axe across the room and it stuck in the back of the wall. I'm like, what in the world? I thought he was making some kind of point. It's not exactly what Dr. Shelby goes through. Oh, by the way, they do have a master class in the CIA right now. You know what's interesting about Apocalypse Now is that that's an important movie. Because in Apocalypse Now, he says that Kurt was special intelligence. Was very vain. Master classes are usually done by actors. Like David Lynch as a master class, kind of actor. Actors do master classes. I teach acting, not the CIA. But I do have a master class. You can take it. What's up? The CIA is all about building relationships. Rib's not. No.
Rib's about finding the bad guys and making sure they don't exist anymore, especially the bullies.
Regardless of the rank. Now, of course, the vlog is probably different than the book. There's a lot of cool vlog stuff. But the vlog has like a different feeling. There's also other stuff, but it kind of leads into like a revolutionary times. That's why I call it a revolutionary book, a book about revolution. And it comes from Alaska. So it's like, what in the world? What the fuck is happening? And like one part, like later on the Rib series, there'd be like something happening on a military base. It was all crazy. All of a sudden, the military realizes, oh shit, we're gonna end up having to fight our own people. That's what happened with Rome. Because Rome burned because of that. Because of corruption. So Daniel Kopech represents part of that corruption. Because he wants an NYPD police officer, representing a bad lieutenant, hacked his way into another department. Whether this happened before or not, I don't know. He had all the proper paperwork, all the proper IDs, everything that he needed to show up to work. And he's in the system and blah, blah, blah. I think there was something that went on for real with Fort Worth Police Department where one of them was found out and was arrested and imprisoned. So, and then there's also those cops down in the South that broke in those poor people's houses and did horrible things. All right, so probably gonna rework and look at chapter 48. and see how we can make it better. The purple light, the purple light. Here we go with today's kitty. One kitty. 9 lives. Each life has a number. Numbers 1 through 9. Swirl the cat food. Pick a cat food. Today's kitty will be having beef feast and gravy fancy feast. Looking for kitty. Here you go, kitty. I hope you enjoy. There he goes. And for midnight kitty. There's Midnight Kitty, also known as Skinny Midnight, also known as Amy the Witch and the Black Alien Kitty.